She had waited 2 years for this moment, and when it finally arrived, there was no hesitation, no panic, and no trace of the teenager who once walked away from a tennis court heartbroken. Alex Eala stepped onto Court 3 at the Lindner Family Tennis Center in Cincinnati, knowing exactly who was standing across the net: Elena-Gabriela Ruse, the Romanian player who had once ended one of the most painful chapters of Eala's young career. 2 years earlier, at the 2024 U.S. Open qualifying tournament, Ruse had beaten Eala 6-3, 6-4, shutting the door on the Filipina's dream of reaching her first Grand Slam main draw. At the time, Eala was still searching for her place in professional tennis, ranked outside the world's top 100 and trying to understand what it would take to compete against established players. That defeat hurt because it represented more than a lost match. It was a glimpse of the destination she wanted, followed by the realization that she was not ready to reach it yet. But tennis has a strange way of bringing unfinished stories back to life. 2 years later, the same opponent appeared again, but this time everything was different. Eala was no longer the teenager trying to break through. She arrived in Cincinnati as the world number 20, a WTA 500 champion, a Grand Slam second-week contender, and one of the most talked-about young players on the women's tour. She was also the number 17 seed at a WTA 1000 event, earning the highest seeding of her career, and receiving a first-round bye that gave her valuable time to recover after her demanding run in Toronto. The contrast was almost impossible to ignore. In 2024, Ruse had been the experienced player standing between Eala and a dream. In Cincinnati, Eala was the established name, the player carrying expectations, momentum, and the attention of an entire nation. And from the opening ball, she played like someone who understood exactly how much she had changed. There was no nervous beginning, no waiting for Ruse to dictate the terms. Eala immediately took control, stepping into rallies, moving her opponent around the court, and refusing to give the Romanian the time she needed to settle into her rhythm. Every exchange seemed to carry a message: the player you beat 2 years ago is gone. This was a different Alex Eala. Her movement was sharper, her decisions were calmer, and her confidence was visible in the way she attacked the ball. Ruse tried to fight back, but Eala kept tightening the pressure. The rallies that once might have overwhelmed the young Filipina were now opportunities for her to impose herself. By the time the final point was played, the scoreboard told a brutal story: 6-4, 6-2. Eala had not merely survived the rematch. She had dominated it. She had taken a painful memory from 2024 and rewritten its ending in Cincinnati. But the most interesting part of the story came after the match, because Ruse did not simply walk away from the court. Her post-match reaction revealed something much bigger than disappointment. The Romanian acknowledged Eala as one of the new stars of the WTA circuit, a statement that carried unusual weight because Ruse knew firsthand just how dramatically the Filipina had evolved. She had seen the old version of Eala. Now she had experienced the new one. And sometimes the most powerful confirmation of a player's rise comes not from their own words, but from the opponent standing on the other side of the net. Ruse understood what had happened. The young player she defeated 2 years ago had transformed into someone who could dictate a WTA 1000 match from start to finish. That recognition made the victory feel even more significant, because Eala's Cincinnati win was not an isolated result. It was the latest chapter in what had become an extraordinary revenge tour. Again and again, Eala had faced players who had previously beaten her, and again, she had found a way to turn those old defeats into new victories. The list had grown rapidly. Renata Zarazua, Maya Joint, Iga Swiatek, Qin Wenjung, Leylah Fernandez, Jessica Pegula, Alicia Parks, and now Elena-Gabriela Ruse. Each opponent represented a different chapter of her career, a different lesson, and a different version of the player she used to be. But the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Eala was not simply beating opponents. She was closing old chapters. And that is what made Cincinnati feel different. There was history behind every ball. There was memory behind every point. 2 years earlier, she had walked away from a qualifying defeat, knowing that she still had work to do. Now she was walking away from the same opponent with another statement victory at one of the biggest tournaments on the calendar. The numbers alone show how dramatic the transformation has been. In 2024, Eala was still a teenager, ranked outside the elite. By August 2026, she had climbed all the way to a career-high world number 20, a remarkable rise of more than 100 ranking places. But rankings only tell part of the story. The real transformation happened in the way she began competing. Earlier in her career, Eala had the talent, the speed, the the ball-striking ability, and the ambition, but she was still learning how to manage the emotional demands of professional tennis. Now, there was a different maturity in her game. She had learned how to survive difficult moments without allowing them to define the match. She had learned when to attack and when to absorb pressure. She had become physically stronger, mentally tougher, and far more comfortable playing against the biggest names in the sport. She had even spoken about this evolution herself, describing the changes not simply as technical improvements, but as a greater maturity in every aspect of her approach. That maturity was impossible to miss in Cincinnati. She did not play like someone desperate to avenge an old loss. She played like someone who had already moved beyond it. That distinction matters. Revenge can create emotion, but maturity creates control. Eala did not need to prove that 2024 had hurt her. She needed to prove that 2026 was different, and she did exactly that. Her breakthrough season had already given her evidence. At the Mubadala DC Open, she became the first Filipina to win a WTA Tour singles title, defeating a series of world-class opponents on her way to the trophy. The run included victories over Olympic champion Qinwen Zhang, defending champion Leylah Fernandez, top-ranked competition, four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka, and Jessica Pegula. It was the kind of tournament that changes how the tennis world views a player. Suddenly, Eala was no longer simply a promising young talent from the Philippines. She was someone capable of defeating established stars under pressure, match after match, deep into a tournament. Then came Wimbledon, where she continued to break barriers, followed by her impressive run in Toronto on the North American hard courts. By the time she reached Cincinnati, she had already proven that Washington was not a lucky week. The title was not a fluke. The victories were not accidents. Something had changed permanently, and that is why Ruse's post-match admission mattered. When an opponent who has just been beaten recognizes a player as one of the WTA's new stars, it is another layer of validation. But Eala's rise was also being noticed by former champions and respected voices from the tennis world. Andy Roddick had highlighted a fascinating part of her game: the way she can use a slower serve not as a weakness, but as a setup for the devastating shot that comes next. The point is not always to hit the biggest serve. Sometimes the real weapon is what happens after the return. Eala has developed the ability to take that next ball and attack it with pace and precision, often sending it into spaces opponents struggle to cover. Greg Rusedski, the former world number 4 and US Open finalist, went even further in his praise. He emphasized Eala's competitiveness, her fighting spirit, and perhaps most importantly, her mental toughness. His message was simple: whoever wants to beat Eala has to play great tennis. That is a powerful statement for a player who is still only beginning to establish herself at the top level. And Rusedski was not merely praising her current results. He suggested that her trajectory could continue upward, even backing the possibility of Eala breaking into the top 10. Suddenly, the question was no longer whether Eala belonged on the biggest stages. The question was how far she could go. Cincinnati provided the next test. After dismantling Ruse 6-4, 6-2, Eala moved into the round of 32 at the $7.4 million WTA 1000 tournament, collecting valuable ranking points and prize money while keeping her momentum alive. But the draw offered almost no room to breathe. A potential clash with world number 10 Amanda Anisimova represented an entirely different challenge. Anisimova's aggressive baseline game and powerful ground strokes could test every part of Eala's defense and counterpunching ability. If that matchup materialized, it would not simply be another match. It would be another opportunity for Eala to prove that her victories over elite players were becoming a pattern rather than a collection of isolated moments. A win would also add another top 10 scalp to a growing record that already showed she was comfortable competing against the best. But Cincinnati did not stop there. Linda Noskova remained a potential threat deeper in the draw, particularly because she had already beaten Eala twice in 2026. That history creates its own kind of tension. If the revenge tour is about turning painful memories into victories, Noskova represents another unfinished chapter waiting to be rewritten. And beyond that, another familiar name could appear: Jessica Pegula, the player Eala had already defeated in the Washington final. Imagine the possibility: a tournament where Eala could face one player she had just conquered, another who had beaten her earlier in the season, and perhaps another top 10 opponent standing between her and the deepest run of her career. This is what makes the Cincinnati story so compelling. It is not simply about one revenge match. It is about a player moving through a draw filled with pieces of her own past. Every round has the potential to become another test of how much she has changed. And that is why the pressure is different now. When Eala was ranked outside the top 100, nobody expected her to win these matches. A defeat could be explained as part of the learning process. But now she is world number 20. She is seeded. She is expected to compete. Opponents are studying her. Fans are expecting victories. The tennis world is beginning to treat her like a legitimate contender rather than an intriguing prospect. That shift can be dangerous because expectations create a new kind of pressure. But so far, Eala appears to be embracing it. Her response after Toronto showed that mindset. Instead of dwelling on what she had missed, she spoke about taking the lessons from those matches and implementing them in Cincinnati and New York. That is the mentality of someone thinking beyond a single result. She is building toward the US Open, where Flushing Meadows will once again bring her back to the place where some of her most painful memories began. 2 years ago, she was fighting simply to qualify. Now she arrives as a top 20 player with a WTA title, major wins, and the confidence of an entire country behind her. That contrast is almost cinematic. The same tournament environment that once represented disappointment can now become the stage for another breakthrough. But before New York, Cincinnati offers one more chance to test herself against the best. The champion in Cincinnati will take home a huge prize and 1,000 ranking points. But for Eala, the value of a deep run goes far beyond money. It could strengthen her ranking, sharpen her confidence, and provide exactly the kind of high-pressure experience she needs heading into the final Grand Slam of the season. More importantly, it could confirm what so many people are beginning to believe, that the breakthrough has already happened. And now, the next phase is about how high the ceiling really is. Think about where this story began. A 19-year-old Filipina walked onto a qualifying court in 2024 dreaming of a Grand Slam main draw. Elena-Gabriela Ruse stood in her way and won. Eala left disappointed, but she did not leave empty-handed. She carried the lesson with her. 2 years later, she returned as a completely different player. Stronger, smarter, more experienced, more confident. And when the same opponent stood across the net, Eala did not allow the past to control her. She controlled the present. The 6-4, 6-2 scoreline was the final confirmation. The revenge was complete. But perhaps the most important victory was not against Ruse at all. It was against the version of herself who once believed that defeat meant she was not ready. Now she understands that defeat can simply be part of the journey. The heartbreak of 2024 became the fuel of 2026. The qualifier became the contender. The teenager became a champion. And the player who once dreamed of entering the Grand Slam main draw is now walking into major tournaments with opponents wondering how they are going to stop her. That is the real story behind Cincinnati. Ruse was the opponent, but the past was the target, and Eala won both battles. Her revenge tour may have begun with old losses, but it is now becoming something much bigger, a declaration that Alex Eala belongs. The tennis world has noticed. Her opponents have noticed. Former champions have noticed. And perhaps most importantly, Eala herself appears to believe it. The question now is no longer whether she can defeat the players who once stood in her way. The question is what happens when there is nobody left from her past to avenge. What happens when the revenge tour becomes a title hunt? What happens when the player everyone once considered a rising prospect starts entering tournaments expecting to win them? Cincinnati may have given Eala her revenge, but it may also have given the rest of the WTA a warning. The Filipina sensation is not finished. She is not satisfied, and she is certainly not slowing down. The road toward the US Open continues, and every victory adds another layer to a story that is becoming impossible to ignore. Elena-Gabriela Ruse once ended one of Alex Eala's dreams. 2 years later, Eala ended the rematch with a dominant performance and a message that could resonate far beyond Cincinnati. The past can hurt you, but it can also build you. And on this night in Ohio, Alex Eala showed exactly what happens when a painful memory is transformed into confidence, discipline, and belief. The revenge was served. The old chapter was closed. But the bigger story is only beginning. The Eala Express is moving forward. And now the entire tennis world is watching to see just how far it can go.